Good evening, everyone. If you could please just take a moment to silence your cell phones. And please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we begin tonight, I wanted to have us take a moment of silence to remember the victims of the tragic April 18th shooting that happened here in Asheville. This shooting event claimed the lives of an Asheville mother and 2 children. And remembering those victims, let's also remember the other siblings who were harmed during this tragic event. Thank you. I just wanted us to take a moment and also acknowledge all of the public safety employees in Asheville and our police department and our fire department and the other first responders, the EMTs, who responded to this horrific shooting. These public servants are not only trained and equipped to respond to calls for help in our community, but they often confront issues of personal safety when they do. And I think if we just take a moment and remember that those are the folks that are on the front line, and we thank them for what they do in times where our community is in great need. Thank you. Do you want me to go? Oh, no, that's only for the... Gwen is reminding me to use the gavel, but that's to trigger the folks to turn on the cameras. But we don't have to do that normally, do we, Maggie?
It would be helpful.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just for work sessions in here. All right, I'm sorry. Anyway, thank you all. We have a number of proclamations tonight, and the first is Oshogbo Day, and I see Karen Court making her way up here, and Councilmember Shanika Smith is going to present the proclamation tonight, and Karen and somebody else is going to help her with some of the challenging pronunciations that are included in it. We have some special guests in the chamber with us tonight that are all fabulously outfitted, so we can recognize them.
Thank you all for being here. Presented to the sister city of Osogbo, state of Osun, Nigeria, Africa, in recognition of the relationship begun in 2010 between Asheville sister cities, the city of Asheville, North Carolina, and Osogbo, Asheville Sister Cities Association, city of Osogbo, Nigeria. Whereas the activities of both organizations, we celebrate the successes achieved through furthering the shared goals of promoting economic, humanitarian, and sustainable development and projects. And whereas, as a result of their work together, the communities of Asheville and Osogbo have helped promote better cultural understanding and creating a world of peace. And whereas Asheville is pleased to welcome an official OASCA delegation from Osogbo April 16th through the 27th, 2018, with guests of honor.
That would be Otumba Grace Titilai Laui Tomori.
Thank you. Deputy Governor of Osun State. And whereas through the actions of city diplomats and community leader members of ASCI and OASCA, look forward to continuing partnerships to bring lasting friendships, new opportunities, and positive change to their respective cities. Now, therefore, I, Esther Manheimer, Mayor of the City of Asheville, do hereby proclaim April 21st as Oshogbo Day. in the city of Asheville, North Carolina, and commend its observance to all citizens. In witness thereof, I hereunto set my hand to cause the seal of city of Asheville, North Carolina to be affixed the 24th day of April 2018. Thank you all for being here.
Karen, if anyone wants to say a few words, please.
Yes, I believe we have a few minutes. Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Mannheimer, Vice Mayor Whistler, council members, city manager Ball, and staff. I'm Karen Korp, president of Asheville Sister Cities, and we thank you for allowing us to come before you on this special day. Sister Cities International began in 1956 with the premise that the world would be changed not only through politics, but people-to-people friendships and understanding. There are now over 2,200 sister cities partnered around the globe, working to promote peace and develop bonds that cross geographic and cultural barriers. Asheville Sister Cities was founded in 1988 with the belief that we, as citizens, could be a part of that dream. Now, with 7 sister cities, our dedicated board, committee chairs, members, and volunteers work passionately to do amazing things around the world. We're pleased to present to you the Oshogbo Asheville Sister Cities delegation, 11 members from the state of Osun, Nigeria, who've spent the past week meeting with community leaders, businesses, and organizations like MAHEC, AB Tech, and UNCA, where an MOU was just signed. Very excited about that. These delegations, which create new opportunities and lasting friendships, truly do change lives and make our world that much smaller, that much closer to the dream. We feel so fortunate to introduce our honored guests from Oshogbo, Nigeria to you. Let me start with the Deputy Governor of the state of Osun, who will speak in just a moment. So this is Otumba Grace Titilaui Tomori, who's the Deputy Governor of Osun State. Then we have the chairman of OASCA, Dr. Oluseyi Atanda. We have the secretary, Dr. Gabo Olatona. We have the financial officer, Ifashola Onafadi. And then the protocol officer to the deputy governor, Timothy Olaoye. Then we have Teniola Taiwo, Dr. Toriola Adebayo, Dr. Olahide Kolawole. We have Fakule Onefadi Adeyemi, Dr. Adegboye Isaac Izawumi, and finally Falowo Ojo. And let me invite the Deputy Governor up to make a very brief remark. Please.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. Mayor Esther Marihima, distinguished members of Asheville City Council that are present here, and of course the president of Asheville Sister Cities, Mrs. Karen Cops. I want to express our sincere appreciation to Asheville City Council for making today a special proclamation day for Oshogbo City in Nigeria. Oshogbo is the state capital of Nigeria, and we have had a wonderful relationship with your city, Asheville, which has been so beneficial to us, and we look forward to making you to enjoy the relationship. I want to thank you for the 9 days of memorable programs that you've given us since we came in last week. We arrived on the 17th of April, and we felt so much at home. This is our own second home, and we appreciate you for having us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you all. We invite you to learn more about our organization. Some of you know a lot about it already. Mayor, thank you. And thank you for the work that you do on behalf of our city and the residents of our community, because we truly do appreciate you. Thank you.
And Karen, let me just say to you for working so incredibly hard on all of your sister cities, your committee, and all the folks that work with you, and the volunteers and the host families making this possible. Yet again, this is amazing. So I want to just thank you all for your hard work. It's really a great program for us and for you, and we're so appreciative you were able to come and be with us tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, the next proclamation tonight is Stand Against Racism Day, and Keith Young, Councilman Keith Young, is going to present the proclamation. If there's anyone here who is with anyone receiving this proclamation, please feel free to come forward.
Going to be reading the proclamation for the Stand Against Racism weekend for the YWCA, and personally want to commend all the work that the YWCA does in our community, all the programs that you offer, and how beneficial you are not only to the city of Asheville but to other different communities around the country. City of Asheville proclamation. Whereas the Asheville City Council proudly supports the YWCA of Asheville in celebration of Stand Against Racism, and whereas Stand Against Racism is the signature campaign of YWCA USA and YWCA associations nationwide to build community among those who work for racial justice and to raise awareness about the negative impact of institutional and structural racism in our communities. This campaign is one part of a larger national strategy to fulfill their mission of eliminating racism. And whereas founded by YWCA Trenton and YWCA Princeton in 2007, Stand Against Racism quickly grew to have a national presence by 2010 when the YWCA of Asheville and an additional 80 YWCAs across the nation took a stand. In 2016, 152 YWCAs along with 650 community organizations across 44 states joined in the stand against racism. And whereas community sites that in 2017 included over 50 different nonprofit organizations, government agencies, businesses, faith groups, colleges, and thousands of participants that helped make Asheville and Buncombe County one of the nation's largest stand sites. And whereas we salute the YWCA of Asheville in its praiseworthy mission to eliminate racism, empower women, stand up for social justice, help families, and strengthen communities. Now, therefore, I, Esther E. Manheimer, Mayor of the City of Asheville, do hereby proclaim April the 27th as Stand Against Racism Day and the weekend of April the 26th through the 28th, 2018 as Stand Against Racism Weekend.
My name is Salam and I am married, and I am the Chief Program Officer of the YWCA. I have two of our board members here with us today, Betsy Russell and Nona Workman. Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Manager, and members of Council. On behalf of YWCA Asheville, we thank you for recognizing Thursday, April 26th as Stand Against Racism Day for the City of Asheville. Every year, YWCA Asheville and our local Stand Against Racism partners come together for a national campaign to raise awareness around the negative impacts of institutional and structural racism, and our community continues to be one of the most active stand sites in the country. YWCA Asheville has been participating in Stand Against Racism since 2011, and our goal is to build off the momentum of previous years, focusing on a specific theme each year. With this said, this year our theme is Our Power, our mission, our future. This year's campaign focuses on supporting full access and engagement for women and girls of color in the political process. Voting rights and civic engagement are and have always been core components of YWCA's racial justice work. And this year's theme certainly comes at a pivotal time as civil rights continues to be attacked and eroded for communities of color. We look to Councilwoman Shanika Smith as a wonderful example of a woman of color in a position of power and leadership here in our city. We hope that she will inspire other young Black and brown women to follow in her footsteps to be a voice and champion for the community. Through the leadership of YWCA Asheville, we are committed to racial and social justice. Since 1907, we have been at the forefront of this work, and we will continue to bring a racial justice lens through our direct service, issue education, public policy, and with our entire community. YWCA of Asheville has also sponsored Code for Asheville's petition for policy accountability and transparency, and we hope that City Council will take a hard look at that. Again, we thank you for this opportunity to recognize Thursday, April 26th as Stand Against Racism Day, and for your continued support as we stand with our community to fight against racism. Thank you very much.
The next proclamation is National Preservation Month, and Julie Mayfield is going to present this, and Jack, you are here, and if you have anyone that you, they're coming on up, okay, there you go.
One of the things that I have gotten to do since I've been on council is be the liaison to the Historic Preservation, Asheville's Historic Preservation Commission. I did not know much about historic preservation, but one of the important things I did here was take a tour with Jack early on in my days here and learned all about our amazing architecture. And I love this work, and I'm proud to be able to give you this proclamation today. Whereas historic preservation gives residents of Asheville a deeper understanding of our diverse heritage and a greater appreciation of our unique historic and natural resources, and whereas historic preservation provides a tangible connection to our history by preserving the built environment as a vessel for the story of our past, and whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for managing growth, revitalizing neighborhoods, creating economic opportunities, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character while enhancing livability. And whereas Preservation Month provides an opportunity for citizens of all ages and backgrounds to maintain preservation and celebrate our city and our nation's rich history. And whereas Preservation Month is sponsored by the Preservation Society of Asheville and Buncombe County, a local nonprofit membership organization celebrating its 42nd anniversary of promoting historic preservation in Asheville. Now therefore I, Esther E. Mannheimer, Mayor of the City of Asheville, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2018 as Preservation Month in the City of Asheville and call upon our citizens to recognize and participate in this special observance.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council, for this exciting recognition of the importance of preservation in our community. My name is Jack Thompson, and I'm the Executive Director of the Preservation Society of Asheville and Buncombe County. The Preservation Society finds this recognition encouraging in light of several of our partnerships with the city, including the somewhat from time to time belabored effort to save the local landmark Thomas Wolfe Cabin, our hopeful efforts to negotiate the next chapter of the E.W. Grove office on Charlotte Street that we currently occupy, and our willingness to bring the city solutions today for the abandoned and somewhat neglected Fire Station Number 4, designed by Douglas Ellington, designer of these fine chambers. Since 1971, our nation has celebrated the importance and power of historic preservation annually in the month of May. And for a century and a half, this dynamic movement has worked to balance progress and a constantly evolving American vision with the importance of recognizing the building blocks of our society represented by our built environment. From mansions to slave dwellings, from towering spires to battlefields, historic preservation reminds us that past truly is prologue. Much like the recipe from Grandma that when made reminds us of her and her lessons for us, historic places are our tangible connection to the past. When our children walk the halls of Asheville High School, they can be taught the lesson of the civil rights protests at the then Lee Edwards High School, and then create history themselves. I've often said and will continue to say that downtown Asheville is a history museum with sidewalks. Even in this frenetic development frenzy our city is in today, is it really that hard to look around and think of Asheville in our 1920s boom before an immediate collapse, when the face of our downtown changed almost completely? We are certainly dependent on our strong tourist economy and have been for over a century, and we must remember why. It is because we are a special place that tells a special story. A place that tells a story with our historic neighborhoods and the assemblage of our historic buildings, both grand and modest. It is these modest century-old buildings that we must pay attention to, as they are the glue that binds the Jackson Building to the Grove Arcade. Discrete neighborhoods like Jackson Park tie Montford to Beaver Lake. And historic preservation is the ultimate recycling, making the greenest building the one that is already built and has been in service for decades. With preservation, the energy represented by this history can continue to be sustainable instead of ending up in a landfill. So join the Preservation Society today in our effort to protect and preserve our home. On May 10th at 5:30, we'll be hosting a family fun event at the historic E.W. Grove Park called Croquet in May. We'll have a 2-time national croquet champion, so that's liable to be fun. On May 24th at 5:30 at the Asheville Masonic Temple, the Preservation Society will be hosting the annual Griffin Awards for Historic Preservation, where we highlight the efforts of individuals and organizations that have taken on the mission of preservation in the last year. And be on the lookout for May 1st. Watch our Facebook page and our Instagram pages for an exciting announcement that will take the Preservation Society of Asheville and Buncombe County into the future of preserving Asheville's past. Thank you so much for your time. Just real quick.
Ready?
Thank you. Okay, we're kind of all over the map here in terms of topics. Our next proclamation is Motorcycle Awareness Month. And Jody Martin is here. Vijay Kapoor is going to present the proclamation. Uh-oh, the motorcycle guys and the preservation guys are all tangled up.
Take a picture of all of them together. Oh, come on.
Yeah, all the motorcycle people can come on up. Come on. That's right. Don't be shy.
Yeah, no, it's all right. It's my first proclamation. All right. You drug them up. Now we're good. All right, maybe a bit too. I guess you guys do. So this is a proclamation for Motorcycle Awareness Month. Whereas it is fitting and proper to recognize that in Asheville, motorcycle riding is a popular form of recreation and transportation for many of our residents and our visitors. And whereas the Concerned Bikers Association, CBA, of North Carolina, is the oldest motorcyclist rights organization in our state. And whereas through the statewide motorcycle awareness and rider training program, the CBA works with communities across the state to expand safety and awareness for the motorcycle rider and for the motorist. And whereas the CBA educates citizens, elected officials, law enforcement agencies, and motorcyclists about the importance of motorcycle safety and awareness. And whereas CBA members are available to give presentations in high schools and community groups and organizations to educate everyone about sharing the road with motorcycles. Now, therefore, I, Esther E. Mannheimer, Mayor of the City of Asheville, do proclaim May 2018 as Motorcycle Awareness Month in Asheville. and urge all citizens to join in this important safety effort by sharing the road with motorcycles.
Well, on behalf of the Concerned Bikers Association of Buncombe County in North Carolina, I want to thank everybody for this. And I want to thank everybody for potentially saving my life and the lives of other bikers and motorcyclists that are out there on the road. Because when everybody's aware that there are motorcycles on the road, that's what we're doing, we're saving lives. And when people realize that there's motorcycles out there and that there's a living, breathing human being on the back of that motorcycle, the roads are much safer for everybody. And when there's families out there that depend on these people that are riding, then everybody benefits from this. Thank you.
Thank you. And then finally, we have National Drinking Water Week, and water drinker Gwen Whistler will present the proclamation. Yeah, all the water people. You think the baby was a rider? Oh,
Whereas water is our most valuable natural resource, and we are all stewards of the water infrastructure upon which future generations depend. And whereas only tap water delivers public health protection, fire protection, support for our economy, and the quality of life we enjoy. And whereas any measure of a successful society, low mortality rates, economic growth and diversity, productivity, and public safety are in some way related to access to safe water. And whereas the City of Asheville produces over 7.2 billion gallons of safe drinking water annually, and whereas the City of Asheville operates a regional water system in Buncombe and Henderson counties, serving 125,000 people, in addition to providing wholesale water for water systems in Black Mountain, Biltmore Forest, and Woodfin. And whereas the Water Resources Department provides safe drinking water and service to our customers through the dedicated staff of customer services, water production, meter services, water maintenance, water engineering, and water administration division. Now, therefore, I, Esther E. Mannheimer, Mayor of the City of Asheville, do hereby proclaim May 6th through 12th, 2018 as National Drinking Water Week in the City of Asheville, and ask each citizen of our community to help protect our source waters from pollution, to practice water conservation, and to become involved in local water issues by getting to know their water.
Mayor, Council, I'm David Melton, the Interim Director of Water Resources, and it's an honor to receive this proclamation. It's exciting for us in the water field to be recognized in this way. And I brought this distinguished group here with me who usually make the magic happen behind the curtain. They usually don't get a lot of recognition, but I asked them to come and introduce themselves and the division within the department that they represent. Thank you.
Please.
Hey, Mayor, Council, I'm Chad Pierce, and I represent the Water Engineering Division.
Good evening, I'm Leslie Carrero. I represent water production. That also includes that lovely watershed.
Good evening, I'm Flory Presnell, and I represent customer services.
Good evening, I'm Josh McDevitt. I represent water maintenance.
And last but not least, I'm Brandon Butner. I represent meter services and backflow cross-connection control.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, that concludes proclamations for this evening. Next, we have the consent agenda. I've got a number of different people that signed up to speak under public comment, but if any of you really wanted to talk about something that was on the consent agenda, just know that at the time we're considering the consent agenda, that's an opportunity for you. But you can't also talk about the same thing at the end of the meeting. So just decide at what point you would rather make your remarks. I need whoever makes the motion to approve the consent agenda to not include item F1 and F2. We just need those removed. We're not going to do those tonight. But otherwise, does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns, motion for the consent agenda? Yes.
I have a question about item C. And then also just want to make some comments around item E.
Okay, so item C concerns a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract amendment with B. Allen Construction LLC for design builds and services for the W&C Nature Center Red Panda exhibit and breeding facility project.
Right, so super, and I
Is there, who's our Red Panda person?
I should have warned somebody that, okay, but I was going to ask this question. So my question is, I mean, red pandas are great, they're adorable and precious. I kind of thought our nature center was focused on native animals, and last I checked, red pandas weren't native to Western North Carolina.
Red Panda? You didn't know?
I mean, maybe they've come and they're here, and that would be great. But so that's my question. Is,
what a great question.
Use the center. Yeah.
I'm Chris Gentile. I'm the director at the Nature Center, and the reason why we chose red panda when we did our 2020 vision is because red panda used to live in the southern Appalachians. As a matter of fact, in Gray, Tennessee, if you go over into Gray, Tennessee, the other side of the Appalachians, they've discovered a primitive red panda known as Bristol's panda. It's the only place in the world that they lived. So we want to show folks, because the natural history of our region is also very important in what we do. Julie, we want to also show them animals that used to live here. So by doing that, we've actually have this Bristol's panda, which is about 3 times the size of the current red panda, sculpted. And we will be able to show people the comparison between the current red panda and the panda that used to live in the southern Appalachians.
Well, that's really
amazing.
Exciting. Where are we going to get our red pandas?
Well, I've already visited the Knoxville Zoo. They're the ones that run the species survival program for red panda through the AZA, the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. And they are identifying animals for us. We're probably going to start with older animals, non-breeding, and then once the exhibit kind of has we've worked through its kinks, we'll probably go with animals that are a breeding pair. So that'll be great.
So Keith has just pulled up a picture of a
They
red
are
panda.
the cutest thing in the
They're
whole
really precious.
world.
You should Google them if you haven't.
Do they all stick their tongue out like that?
Well, the name panda actually, panda, because you think of the giant panda and the red panda, panda means bamboo eater. So there's really only a few species of animals in the world that can live exclusively on bamboo or most part of their diet. So even though red panda and giant panda are not related necessarily, one's in the raccoon family, actually its own family, and the other's a bear, the name panda has that bamboo eating. So we've started growing bamboo at the Nature Center. We have a 2-acre plot, and we're hoping to feed our animals from what we have at the Nature Center without bringing in additional bamboo.
We do have a lot of invasive bamboo, though, around town, so feel free to.
I was going to say, you need to grow extra bamboo.
The Biltmore Estate has some lovely bamboo they might be willing to.
Okay, well,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
very
You
much.
answered all our panda questions. Okay. Wait, C, and then what was your other one? E.
Yeah, E. So this is the carbon fee and dividend policy, and I know there are a number of people who.
Yes, I did notice there were some folks signed up to talk about this topic. So.
Yeah. So I just want to take a moment and talk just for a minute about what this is, and our commenters will say more as well. But in my view, this is just one more step in the City Council's series of statements over the last many years around climate change, citing the importance of climate change and the need to do something about it. And also calling on, many of our resolutions have called on different levels of government to do different things. Sometimes we call upon ourselves to do things related to climate change, to combat climate change. Sometimes we call upon the state government. This is a call really to Congress to do something, anything on climate change. The particular remedy proposed here is called a carbon fee and dividend, and again, I'm sure our speakers will say more about what this is, but the short story is that, and this is, again, I think what we know about carbon generally and climate change generally is that if we don't start charging people for climate emissions, we're never going to beat this problem. And so the carbon fee would put a fee on carbon. There's no, we're not hiding the ball there. And then the dividend piece, so we would all pay a little bit more because everything that we do that involves carbon would cost more. The dividend piece is that then that money comes back to the American people in the form of a dividend that you can do whatever you want to with. Ideally, you would use it to help reduce your carbon consumption. That would be the ideal, but that is, you can spend it on whatever you want. So one of the advantages of this remedy, there are many, this is not the only solution to carbon and not the only carbon policy that's out there. This is the one, however, that has the most bipartisan support in Congress. It is still not an enormous amount of bipartisan support in Congress, but it is the one that has the most. And there is a very well-organized group lobbying in every state and in every community and in Washington pretty consistently to try to get this passed. And it would be, again, it is not the only solution, but it would be a great solution if it could in fact get passed. So with that, I commend it to my colleagues up here to adopt it. And I'm also happy to make a motion to adopt the entire consent agenda if we're ready for that.
Minus items F1 and F2.
Minus items F1 and F2.
Second. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments before I ask for comments on the motion? Okay. If there's anyone wishing to comment on the motion to approve the consent agenda, this would be the time to speak. Please state your name, and you have 3 minutes to speak. The lights on the lectern will indicate green means go, yellow means you're getting close, and red means stop. Is there anyone wishing to speak on the motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the carbon item?
Right. So carbon people, this is your chance.
Right. We haven't. Again, state your name and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Here. I'm Mike Hill. I'm a math teacher and environmental science teacher at Asheville School. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm a volunteer with Citizens Climate Lobby. I've been a volunteer since 2016. Now, one of my roles at CCL is a congressional liaison with one of our more conservative members of Congress. I'm proud of the fact that we've developed a very solid relationship with this member of Congress. Last fall, he asked our team to gather as much economic literature we could on our carbon pricing proposal. I set out in good faith to find all of the relevant information, either in support for our proposal or against it. And what I found actually shocked me. I could not find even one report that said that anything other than a revenue-neutral carbon fee and dividend plan was the most effective way to drastically reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Better than regulation, better than subsidies. Not only is carbon fee and dividend the most effective way to reduce emissions, but it is also the fairest. Independent economic modeling predicts that 53% of U.S. households and 58% of individuals receive a net financial benefit as the dividend exceeds the estimated increase in costs of goods purchased. The gains are concentrated among those considered most vulnerable within our society, those with lower incomes, the youngest and the oldest, and minorities. Given the urgent and present need to act on climate change, we respectfully ask you to pass this resolution and help us take another strong step towards securing a stable climate and a livable world for us all. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak on the motion to approve the consent agenda?
My name is Taylin Breeden, and I live out in Leicester, North Carolina. And I think it's time we get strategic in how we fight the effects of climate change. One of the hardest parts in passing legislation is, 1, denial that there is a problem, but 2, getting support from both parties. The Citizens Climate Lobby has worked on a detailed bill that would benefit not only our planet but our people. The tactic is to create a carbon dividend. This pricing on carbon would push the global market to equalize by pricing people when they pollute. This pricing doesn't happen all at once, and the gradual increased pricing over time will allow businesses to make a plan on how to become more sustainable. It's simple. You pollute, you pay. This is not a tax. We know when you raise a price on a company, oftentimes it's the consumers that take on the increased costs. Therefore, we would provide a dividend check to the people. This is a federal bill, but we need local government to support it and demand it. I ask for you to vote yes and support our future as a clean and renewable America. Thank you.
As the chapter leader of Asheville Citizens Climate Lobby, my name is Steffi Rausch, by the way. I just want to say thank you for meeting with us, those that did meet with us, Julie for backing us up. We've met with you many times and we're very grateful for your support. I just want to bring to bear to everyone that some people have doubts as to whether our president will actually pass a bill in this regard. And Citizens Climate Lobby is actually, we're not even just in the US, but we're all over the world passing this type of climate solution, of which has been implemented in 4 countries around the world in some form or another of a carbon dividend plan. But 40 countries around the world already price carbon. And now almost 1,500 large corporations around the world are internally pricing carbon in their budgets. So pricing carbon is coming, we believe, is coming, I think, for the rest of the world. It is something that is a global solution. But the other thing that we're working on in Congress is the Climate Solutions Caucus, of which we got covered on National Geographic for in helping to facilitate the creation of and then to grow from 12 members to now 72, where if a Democrat or a Republican wants to join the Climate Solutions Caucus to discuss solutions, they have to bring in someone from the other side of the aisle. What a novel concept. I think with that growth, we continue to grow it, and then eventually they will propose legislation in a bipartisan way. So I thank you all for voting on this. I believe this will make huge progress along with 82 other cities around the nation, and will continue to go on to other cities around outside of Asheville. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, you've heard enough about this already. I just wanted to thank all of you for the time you've spent in trying to understand.
Say your name, Dan. Say your name.
Oh, I'm sorry. Dan Glidden. I'm a volunteer with Citizens Climate Lobby. Been involved for a little over a year. And I actually went into my calendar this morning and looked back on when this process started. And it was 1 year ago today, almost to the hour, that I met with Gwen to talk about how we might go about getting a resolution in front of the City Council. So we worked really hard at it. I appreciate all the time that you've spent on it. We also want to thank John Knorr and Sacy for the time they spent in helping us draft the resolution that's in front of you today. I know every individual piece that we do in this regard doesn't seem like it's that significant, but it all adds up to something really important. And it helps us to build the political will to get Congress to finally do something. And I honestly believe we're making really good progress. So we appreciate your consideration of this today and encourage you to pass it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on the motion to approve the consent agenda? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, we are finished with the consent agenda. We are to presentations and reports, and we only have one, but it's going to be really interesting. And Patrick Conant is doing the presentation. He's making his way up here. This is code for Asheville's petition for police accountability through data transparency. Welcome.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Cue up something. Yeah.
And Jesse has brought up signatures, which we'd like to provide for the public record. We collected these both on change.org as well as in person on paper copies of the petition. We have over 850 signatures that we're providing today, as well as 22 official endorsements from organizations in Asheville and beyond. I should know this, but I'm not entirely sure how to pull it out. Full screen.
What kind of IT guy are you?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm a that guy. Isn't it called Code for Asheville?
Okay, so my name's Patrick Conant. I'm a volunteer with Code for Asheville. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. On behalf of Code for Asheville, I'm presenting our petition to council for police accountability through data transparency. This is a community-driven policy solution to help our city build a 21st century police department. First, a little background. We created this petition as a response to recent incidents of excessive use of force in our city. We wanted to focus on an effort that would build upon the knowledge and experience of Code for Asheville members, particularly around open data and government policies. Additionally, we wanted to focus on a foundational element in the big picture of police reform, namely requesting that our City Council prioritize the release of data and information that will empower the many individuals and groups in our community to participate in our efforts to build a better police department. To provide some context on the timeline of our proposal, our efforts started at a Code for Asheville meeting on March 8th. We spent 5 days crafting the language of our request, and we worked to gather input from many members of our community. We launched both our formal request and a change.org petition on March 13th. On March 26th, I presented this proposal to the Public Safety Committee, and they approved our request to present at council tonight. At that time, the Public Safety Committee also requested that staff reports be generated in response to our proposal. The City IT Department did complete an analysis of the cost and technical considerations required to release the data sets we requested in our proposal, and I forwarded this report to each of you. To summarize, their reports find that our proposal requests data sets that are consistent with the nationwide police data initiative as well as the city's open data policy. They found that technical means do exist to filter private information from the requested data sets, and the cost of implementation would be covered by existing work plans. That brings us to our presentation tonight. While I understand that additional staff reports are still being compiled, I would encourage City Council to consider providing direction tonight to indicate that transparency in police data is a priority for our city and to allow us to start the process of determining how to make that happen. I want to provide some information on the overall benefits of police data transparency from the perspective of a citizen who not only cares deeply about our city, but who has also worked directly with our city on several initiatives related to human relations and public safety. Our proposal is about as common sense as any put before this council. That's just my opinion, but I think that's the case. And I think it is one that aligns very closely with many of the concepts of 21st century policing. This proposal builds upon existing efforts by our city to be a leader on open data and builds upon equity initiatives that have been prioritized by our City Council. This proposal will make data and reports available that can be utilized by our Human Relations Commission when that body is up and running, and it will also assist residents who wish to support efforts that will make that body successful. At its most basic level, this proposal demonstrates a commitment from our City Council that transparency and accountability are core tenets of our police department. This is how we start the important process of rebuilding trust with the community, by providing our residents with the information they need to participate effectively in the process. We are requesting data already collected by our police department is released to the public via the city's open data portal. We are requesting policies and reports that most people might think are already available. Things like the APD policy manual and blank copies of forms used for various internal functions. It's hard for the community to collaborate with our police department when they can't read the current policies or see what's going on to the forms currently. Finally, police data transparency. Actually, first I want to highlight that police data transparency makes information on internal safeguards available to the public, things like internal audit processes. By releasing these for the public to view, we are able to enhance trust and provide additional assurances that the safeguards we have in place are functioning properly. Finally, police data transparency saves money. When our city makes information readily available to the public, it eliminates the need for a records request for that information. And I have a lot of personal experience making these requests, and it does take a lot of time. With that introduction, I'd like to discuss the details of our request. I'm about to show a list of data sets we're requesting, but I'd like to provide some additional clarification in response to feedback I've received throughout the process of taking this proposal to the community. First, I would like to highlight that we're confident that every piece of information, every data set, every form we're requesting is a public record. There can be discussions around which fields are released, but some aspect of each of these data sets is a public record, and any citizen could do a request for this information. So to be clear, we're asking that City Council makes it easier and more efficient to access this information by placing these data sets on the Open Data Portal. We also absolutely understand and respect privacy, investigative, or legal concerns with the release of this information. As the IT staff report confirmed, the names of citizens and officers can be omitted from all of these data sets, and addresses can be generalized to the block level. And doing so provides a lot of protections to our citizens and officers, but doesn't really detract from the benefit of this information, which can really be used for trend analysis. Furthermore, we're requesting that data be released in an automated process. We're not asking City Council to create a hurdle where we have to redact hundreds of forms manually. This can all be automated. So with that being said, I've provided the full copy of our request, but I briefly just wanted to highlight each of the data sets we're requesting in our proposal. We're asking for use data, not the reports themselves, around use of force incidents by our police department. We're requesting emergency or 911 call data, which is the same as calls for service. We're asking for crime report data, some information of which is already published on the city's Open Data Portal. We're asking that all historical information is restored to that feed. Arrest and citation data is very useful to do analysis of police-related outcomes. We're asking for information related to either arrests or citations, including demographic information, is provided on the data feed, and that's not currently there. We would request that citizen complaints, whatever data can be released under the law as it stands today, goes on the feed now. And if some of the revisions requested by council related to personnel matters go through, then we can make the feed even better. Traffic stop reports, APD provides a really comprehensive quarterly report to council on traffic stops. It has a lot of maps and tables and charts in it. We would like to see the raw data used to compile that report be released to the public, as well as the enhanced information related to every traffic stop that is now created by APD's enhanced report. Finally, we understand that council and the public have greatly prioritized hiring more minority officers onto our force. We're requesting that demographic information on APD officers is released so that the public can see that information as well, to see how our city is making progress. For policies and reports, we're requesting that the APD policy manual be added to the city website. We're requesting that blank copies of any internal report forms are added to the city website, things like a use of force report. We just want to see a blank copy so we know what's captured on that form. We would ask that internal audit reports, for example, as specified in the city's body-worn camera policy, are added, should both be submitted to the Public Safety Committee, but available for the public to see as well. And finally, we would ask that recordings of public committee meetings related to public safety or otherwise of significant community interest are recorded so people who can't make a meeting at 3:30 on a Monday are able to follow the process and get involved. Finally, we would recommend the council consider the following additional actions, such as you already accepted the Blue Ribbon Committee's recommendations to create an HRC, so that one is covered. We would also recommend the council revisit the NAACP and Southern Coalition for Social Justice proposals related to traffic stops from April 2017. We would request that council consider adopting a comprehensive anti-retaliation policy for city employees, and we would also request that council direct staff to have the city join the police data initiative. Finally, as I mentioned earlier, this effort is a foundational one. We are trying to set the stage for many individuals and groups in our city to pursue further proposals for community-driven police solutions related to public safety. We've reached out to dozens of individuals and groups for their input as we wrote the request, and subsequently worked for the past month to build a large coalition of community support for this proposal. At this point, we have over 850 signatures and the endorsements of 22 organizations, some of which are listed on this slide, some who are not, because I had to submit the proposal last week, the presentation last week. I'd like to close briefly with some next steps. First, I want to take a moment to thank everyone from Code for Asheville and in our community who helped craft this proposal, who signed and shared it on social media, and helped connect us with organizations who endorse this important effort. This has literally taken hundreds of hours and dozens of people to make this happen, and I sincerely want to thank each and every one of them. Finally, I just want to quickly go over these next steps. We're asking council to consider providing clear direction to staff that these data sets should be released by our city. We believe that the city's open data policy covers this concept already, but we think clear direction from council would help move this process along. I would also request that council establish a timeline and process so that this doesn't get lost. So we see progress and regular updates through efforts to release this information. And I would also ask that City Council consider a process to invite the community to work on, not just to analyze the data and talk about the data, but to develop additional policy solutions. I've heard council say, bring us your ideas, but what we haven't heard is exactly how to do that. So I think council could provide a lot of leadership by setting a process, whether it's working groups or existing committees, to make that happen. Just to close, in closing, I would just like to say that if we can work together to pull this off, I truly believe we can transform our cities in ways we have never seen before. Please join me in working with our community to develop a pipeline of brilliant, collaborative ideas that can move our city forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I see our IT folks here. Do you all want to add anything, or just here for moral support? Okay. All right.
We're here for you.
Here we go. Thank you. I want to thank you for working so hard for so long on so many different projects, and this one being your latest one, and I know you've had a lot of help as well working with your folks. And this is on as a presentation. If there are questions, this would be a good time, and I think if we want to go ahead and give some guidance or direction to staff, this would probably be an appropriate time to do that as well. I know that Patrick's had a chance to sort of make the rounds and meet with folks on council, so I'll probably have a lot of your questions answered. Go ahead.
I just wondered, Kathy, if you could give us the status of, Patrick referenced that staff was, going to have some sort of idea around resources, et cetera. When will City Council, and in what form will we get that?
So our goal from a cross-functional departmental standpoint is to put together a general overview for you at your May 15th meeting. And that doesn't mean that we'll have all of the questions answered at that point. It means that we are going to start the process of looking at the requests and be able specifically to speak to next steps, action items, things that we're in the process of reviewing, benchmarking, but to provide you with a report on where we are at that point. So that is our goal. That is the commitment that that we have made to move forward. I would reiterate that I appreciate IT's work on this. However, it is a collaborative effort between the police department, our legal staff, as well as IT to make this happen. I think we are committed to transparency and to providing information. I think we want to make sure that I'm learning a lot of this right now, making sure we protect the rights of all the individuals involved. So trying to find a way to make that happen, I think, is where we're at this point.
Great. And if there's any way I can help clarify the intention of our request throughout that process, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
So in terms of next steps, I know that this has been reviewed in public safety and you're here tonight. So in terms of process, my sense from council is that we've kind of laid out a multi-pronged approach to change, and we have a collective interest in working with the community to make sure data and transparency are are very much a part of our future and the way we work with our community. And how to do that, I think, is kind of what we're talking about here. I personally think the proposal that you've made is a good one, and I don't really know logistically what it means in terms of implementation and staff time and timeline and that sort of thing. But, you know, we have been eager for some time now to be able to see more data and have that reviewed on a really regular basis. We built it into the budget last year. We talked about quarterly reports around stop data and things like that. And I don't really feel like that's come to fruition in the way we were hoping fully, that we would have more. My personal impression is I was hopeful that we would have more. And I also wasn't aware that some of this information, which is public, is actually pretty hard to get to. So I personally would like to see a proposal like this advanced. I think we may have some other ideas too to couple with it in terms of being able to review data around policing and making available some of this other information as well.
So what I'm hearing from you is that on May 15th we should have a more concrete understanding of what we're going to be able to do. And just piggybacking off of what the mayor said, you know, our expectations for having some things brought to fruition a bit quicker have not been to our liking. So, well, yeah. Who's that comedian? In the words of Bernie Mac, bust a move. Let's get it done.
So would we be able to put this on under as a new business or old business item on the 15th? Is that kind of what you're picturing, Kathy? That we'd be able to do that?
Yeah, I am. We have committed to come back on the 15th. As I mentioned, we may not have every one of these specifically addressed, but we will have an initial report and a timeline of how we're going to move all of the requests forward. I think that my understanding is what we're trying to look at is not only what can we do, but what is the timeline that we're able to do it on.
So prior to the May 15th meeting, as you're working to get all this put together, you mentioned that there may be some things that may not be included. I would like to find that out way before the May 15th meeting and know why, and get a complete understanding so we don't get in here and have, you know, those things unfold. So I'd definitely like to, I'm assuming the rest of the council would too, like to know what sort of things are transpiring early on, even if it's within the next couple of days. So as soon as you get information, please relay that.
You're talking about what Kathy's mentioning, if staff's not able to get to everything, what is it we're not going to be able to get to? But, you know, I think the proposal, to build on this proposal, to get it in place and to build on it would be a good thing and a good goal for us. I would like us to, and I think council agrees, develop some regular system for reviewing data, you know, our police data, so we can look at how we're doing and where we're doing well, where we're not doing well, what's working, what's not working. You know, maybe the folks on public safety can tell me whether or not you feel like that's coming along, the ability to look at sort of an apples to apples comparison of data on a regular basis or not. My sense is that it's not quite there.
My sense of it. I mean, to this point, we're getting APD's analysis of the data and no one else's. So I'm eager in moving forward with this, and I think the rest of public safety was as well.
Yeah, and to Brian's point, what my experience with the police data that we've gotten so far is that we get data from some people over here, and then we get police data, and there's not, it's confusing. Where there are conflicts, it is confusing. I didn't take statistics. I'm not a data person. I'm not Patrick, thank God. I mean, you're great, and that's, I have my brain, you have your brain, and let's just leave it at that. But I need help in understanding these this information. And I guess what I would like to suggest, I am not going to be here on the 15th because we changed the council meeting and I already had plans to be at a conference. So I'm just going to put my request out today, and that is that in addition to figuring out the path to making this data public, that we also figure out a way to bring what I think could be a relatively small group of people together to help interpret the data and ideally get to agreement on what the data means. I think it's not generally very helpful when governments just throw out a bunch of information and there's no interpretation and there's no understanding of what the data says. It allows the data to be manipulated and used for good and bad on all sides. And so I would be interested in for lack of a better term, I'll call it a bipartisan group of people that are great IT folks, Patrick, folks from our police department, maybe folks from the Racial Justice Coalition, other people in the community who have had a long-standing interest in this, somehow coming together on a regular basis, whether that's monthly or quarterly or whatever it would be, to really look at this data and help the rest of us interpret it and understand it. So.
And can I just respond to that quickly? I think that's a great idea. I think where our government has not worked well is when there are two sets of reports on the same issue and it doesn't provide any clarity to our council. There is definitely a way we can make this a more collaborative process where we're sitting down and talking about the numbers. And I would just point out, it's not just techies like me who are talking about data now. One of the things that amazes me when I go out into the community now is all the groups and individuals of every type are now looking to data as a way that we can analyze the problems facing our city and come up with new solutions. So I think if we establish that kind of process, it would apply to everyone in our city.
I also just want to say thank you for all your work on this.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so to be continued to next time. I mean, Kathy, do you feel like you have some good clarity about direction? And okay. And it may be, I'm curious to see whether we have the right staffing in APD to be able to work with you all over here at City Hall to sort of bring this to fruition, but that's why you're the interim manager. You're going to figure that out. Yep. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So that was our only presentation for this evening. We have one item of unfinished business. And this is a resolution authorizing the city manager to direct staff to move forward with the Charlotte Street Improvement Project that is listed in the adopted General Capital Improvement Program implementing option 1 and option 3 recommendations. Ken Putnam is here to talk to us about this item.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Ken Putnam, and I'm the Transportation Department Director. And I want to just present some facts from the staff report for your consideration tonight. The Charlotte Street corridor that we're talking about begins at I-240 ramps or right around Orchard Street and goes up to Edwin Place. It's about a half a mile long. And over the years, there's been several studies along this corridor, going all the way back to 1997, all the way up to 2016, which is the AIM plan, the Asheville in Motion plan. In October 2014, City Council took action to designate this section of road as an innovation district as well. Most recently, staff has been working with the Charlotte Street Business Association, businesses that are right on this corridor. And some of the items that we have completed, we responded to the red light camera and crash data inquiry that they presented to us. We've installed a flashing speed limit sign to give emphasis to the fact that it is 25 miles an hour, and then we've added a border around the existing signs to again draw attention to the signs. We installed the temporary speed radar signs in that area for a period of 3 months, and then after that period we went back in and took new traffic counts and speed data and shared that information with the group to see how effective those signs were being. And we're almost finished with the crosswalk at the intersection of Charlotte Street, Baird, and Broad. All the concrete work is done, and as soon as it stops raining, and hopefully the weather will get a little bit warmer, we will be installing the crosswalk by the end of this week, or at the latest by Monday, April 30th is what we're really targeting. The schedule for the project that we're asking you to give us permission to move on would be that we would engage with the community during the months of July and September, the first quarter of the new fiscal year, and then we'd move into the planning and conceptual design work the second quarter, and then assuming that we have good consensus to move forward, then we'd move forward with actual project design and engineering, and then the project construction would move into fiscal year 2020, because in the budget document now we have the design money for the 2019 and then the construction money for 2020. When we went before the Planning and Economic Development Committee back in March, we basically presented, there's listed 4 options here, but the 5th option was really a do-nothing and all. But we looked at different options, one of them being a road diet, one of them being corridor improvements, and then a third one to be the tactical projects, and then a very comprehensive one that had a high physical impact to just look at the entire process to incorporate everything, including stormwater improvements. After much discussion, the Planning and Economic Development Committee recommended that we do kind of a hybrid and move forward with the road diet and the tactical projects. So when you read the staff report, it may look like there's some conflicts with what we're asking to do, but what we're trying to do is keep all of the options on the table so that when we go through the process with the community and the design team, that everything can be looked at, everything can be considered, and then what we may end up having is a recommended package that City Council could then let us move forward with the actual design and construction on, and there would be price tags with every one of these ideas. Right now, it's hard to say if there's enough money to do everything we want to do. And there's several challenges out there that we all know about. We have buildings that are to the back of a sidewalk. We have walls that may be difficult to move. We have nice mature trees that may be difficult to move. But at the same time, there's lots of opportunities where we have unopened driveway openings that could be closed. We have access into individual businesses that could be improved and that sort of thing. So we're trying to keep all the options on the table and then to involve as much of the community as we can as we move forward. So again, as the mayor said, we just need your consideration and approval to have us move forward with it. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
I got some emails from folks. I'm sure there's going to be public comment on this, right? Yeah, so I'm sure they'll stand up. But I did get some emails from people. There was some confusion about the memo. People were worried that what the staff was recommending were sharrows on Charlotte Street as opposed to bike lanes. And I just want to clarify with you that, as you just said, at this point, sort of given the corridor and given that there's been no design work done, it's that all options would be on the table. But what is clear is that the road diet, so it will go from 4 lanes to 3, that will happen, and then the pedestrian improvements, the crosswalks and some sidewalks and things like that. So I think I just smushed 2 things together there. So let me just clarify.
Is that correct?
So the thing that PED recommended was the road diet, going from 4 lanes to 3. That is a solid recommendation.
And this is from the Chestnut intersection to
Edwin.
Okay.
Yeah, and then that there be sort of more spot improvements to access and pedestrian crosswalks and intersections as Ken recommended. So we don't. So is that's the base of the recommendation?
Yes, that's correct. And what's in the staff report is really a direct quote of the information that was in the actual motion plan.
Right.
And that's what, and it basically started out like on a short-term basis we could use the sharrows, but the long-term solution would be bicycle lanes.
Would be the road diet with the bicycle lanes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Great. And just one other question, it sounds like from your timeline that you are planning to have a public process around design and different features that people would want to see as a part of this, and then that ultimately you would come back to us with some options and price tags around design that we would then decide.
Right, that's exactly right, before we move into construction.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions of Ken? Okay, so we need a motion, and then once we have a motion, we'll take comment on it, if anyone. And I do have some people that have signed up under the public comment period to speak about this item, but this would be the better time to do that.
So I'd make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing city manager to direct staff to move forward with the Charlotte Street improvement projects that is listed in the adopted general capital improvement programming, implementing option 1 and option 3 recommendations.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. If there's anyone wishing to speak on this item, this would be the time. Again, please state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Council. My name is Benji Burrell. I'm an engineer who lives just a couple blocks off of Charlotte Street. Before I get started, I wanted to thank the entire Council for your relentless work to make our city better. I know that you face unending challenges through this process. We've seen a lot of it today, and the last few months have been difficult. It's not easy to be the sounding board for the voices, emotions, and needs of 90,000 people. So thank you very much for that and making our town better. I wanted to comment on the Charlotte Street revisions. We are a growing community. I guess I should say first, the letters that are getting passed around to you are signed by a couple dozen of our neighbors. And we are all in support of the road diet 3-lane solution with bike lanes on the side. So as you know, the Charlotte Street community is a growing community, hardworking families, hardworking business owners. They're creating jobs for the community. The corridor has a huge potential for being a destination and in its own right. It's also a gateway to the Grove Park Inn. So a lot of people travel it, but also a lot of people enjoy living there and working there. Excuse me just a moment. Well, rather than encouraging that corridor being a hub for businesses and as a neighborhood hub, the 4-lane is actually encouraging it being a throughfare. There's a lot of speeding cars, a lot of passing, a lot of zigzagging as people aim to turn one direction and then people behind them try to swerve around. Lots of curb cuts that are hard for folks in wheelchairs or even myself, who's a relatively healthy person, to navigate because there's no buffers between the cars and my elbow. I want to say that my neighbors and I support this resolution that you have in front of you, but we want to see some clarifications because the language is not clear that the road diet and the bike lanes are going to be the priority. So I want to suggest in the resolution, the 6th paragraph begins with whereas option 1 is a road diet. I want to just suggest that you offer a motion to, after enhanced bicycle facilities, add the wording excluding sharrows but including bike lanes as the preferred and priority treatment. And I also wanted to ask that you add the language drop the language as recommended in the AIM plan and eliminate the use of the innovation district designation for this area. I think it's not a good idea to drop the option of funding future fixes with the innovation district money. As I understand it, it's loans that can be acquired in the future, but that language is in the current resolution, so it's important to know that. I also want to say that I'm concerned that the language of the 7th paragraph indicates that spot treatments, what's called the tactical projects approach, it seems to indicate that it could use the entire 1.25 million. So I think that should be clarified. And so thank you so much for your consideration here and your hard work.
Thanks. Is there anyone else wishing? And we do have your comments in writing. That's helpful with your suggested changes.
Hi, Council. My name is Clark Mackey. I'm a longtime local and business owner, and I also wanted to speak about Charlotte Street. Is it okay if I use the overhead? Sure.
It'll pop up.
Just a second.
I just want to talk about one use case for the future bike lane, and that's me riding with my daughter. This is an actual loop that we explore Asheville on. You can see where we rode on Charlotte Street as little as possible. That's just enough to get the ultimate ice cream and keep my daughter at peace with herself.
Is that your like jog down in the back?
Yeah, the jog down is me sneaking out of Kenilworth and getting into North Asheville and avoiding all of the roads that I would love to be able to use. This is us eating at Luella's on that ride. This is my daughter's bike that we carry on the handlebar. This is the Greenway near UNCA in Merriman. This is me taking her to ride the swings in the park in Montford. And this is us sneaking in the back entrance to Green Life to get flowers for Mom. So what I want staff especially to understand is that this infrastructure is not an amenity for a spandex wearing cyclist. And the request for a bike lane over a Shero is a request from your neighbors to come and go to downtown safely. And if we want more of this, we've got to get out of the business of putting Sheros down and put down protected bike infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. My name is Deb Karish, and I live just off of Charlotte Street. I cross the street at Baird fairly often, and I like to walk to the businesses on Charlotte Street, and I like to walk downtown. And currently, it doesn't feel safe to walk on our street because the cars are passing right next to you. And so I just want to say that I support the 3-lane with the dedicated bike lanes, because that bike lane creates a buffer between the traffic and the people on the sidewalk. I'm a little bit concerned that from Ken's presentation that like maybe this won't happen until 2020, which I think is a long ways away, considering it's just reorganizing the street lanes. Am I wrong or am I right that won't
The
happen?
timeline was, as he presented, yes, in terms of the planning and engineering and the process.
In the budget.
And the budget allocation for capital, that's the year that the large piece is.
The money slotted for. And I'm also concerned about the loss of the Innovation District, because there are some businesses coming empty and vacant properties on our street, on Charlotte Street, that, I think could be supported by the Innovation District, and, we want to see good things happen there, so we have some concerns about that aspect.
Yeah, my name is David Trophy. I also live in that area. I live with Deb, and just wanted to reiterate that Charlotte Street, as it is 4-lane, is completely unsafe. And I have a goddaughter that lives on that same block, and we often go down for lunch at City Bakery, and the sidewalks, we talked about elbows being hit by cars is a serious issue. So I know that this is going to happen. I'd like for it to happen sooner, and I'd also like for the council to consider mandating that this is a 3-lane road and that we do have a solid bike lane on each side. And, thank you all for your efforts.
Kathy, can you explain to us the recommendation to remove the Innovation District designation?
Yeah.
That's.
I don't know if Stephanie is here.
Or if there are staff listening to this somewhere in their hidey hole, maybe they could come here and tell us why.
I mean,
so if you don't.
In general, I can speak to it. I think that typically the Innovation District comes with being able to make transformational placemaking changes. So if you're doing a transportation project, that in and of itself doesn't create the Innovation District. I don't think there's a huge issue with leaving it as an Innovation District designation. I think that and I'm basing this on conversations that we've had over the past couple of months, the expectations that people have around having an Innovation District, because I think we're at the point of defining what this project is, and it feels much like a transportation improvement project. But I don't think it's a huge issue to or have it remain as an innovation district.
This is reminding me, sorry if I could just interject here, that we did also talk about at PED, we asked the staff, the planning staff, to look at the zoning in that corridor and to come back to PED with any recommendations around zoning changes that would help, again, sort of better foster the pedestrian corridor that we're talking about doing. So that's not in here, but I just wanted everybody to be aware that we've asked for that.
Or use that other mic. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, I came all the way down here, so I got to say something. I'm Meg Jamison, and I also live in the Charlotte Street neighborhood, and I just want to say that I support my neighbors. I think I may have signed that document that you're reading. And I have 2 small children in the neighborhood, and we risk our lives in the stroller every once in a while to walk down the street. So I just want to tell you how much I support my neighbors' feelings about the protected bike lane and also improved sidewalk safety and crosswalk safety. And thank you for moving forward with the crosswalk so quickly. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks. Wow. So I've got a few
Yes, my name is Max Alexander. I also live in Asheville, and thank you all for allowing me to speak. Maggie, good seeing you again. Kathy, here, getting tired of meeting this way. I just found out about the making Charlotte Street 2 lanes a couple of weeks ago. And, you know, I was sitting at Green Life on the patio having a beer one Friday afternoon, and I saw an ambulance trying to get through the Merriman Avenue traffic jam. And I was thinking to myself, that poor guy or girl in that ambulance, I hope they just have a broken leg or something like that, because they're not going to make it to the hospital. So it got me thinking about making Charlotte Street 2 lanes, and I started doing some math. So at 21,000 cars a day, that is 105,000 cars a week. It's a 5-day week. So if I assume a wait time due to the 2-lane implementation of 5 minutes, that adds up to 520,000 wait minutes a week for the cars. The total, all those drivers are going to be waiting 500,000 20 hours. And if any of you are familiar with the song Rent, you know what year it is, right? 20,600 minutes makes a year. But in 5-day years, that's going to be 1.45 years. So they're going to wait 1.45 years every week. Interesting number. And so, you know, what does that mean? Does that mean people are going to, you know, take longer to get to where they're going and things like that? Well, it means a couple of things. Suppose there's a fire on Sunset Drive, let's say, for instance, and the fire truck is delayed by 5 minutes because, you know, darn it, they have to go at rush hour. So what impact does that have? So with a fire, for every 1 minute delay, the damage to the fire or by the fire doubles. So that means a 5-minute delay is going to cause a lot more damage than no delay at all. So another potential thing, suppose there's a stroke at GPI. GPI has a lot of old folks there. I'm one of them occasionally. And, you know, the stroke happens. So the Grove Park Inn staff is well trained. They recognize it's a stroke. I know they're well trained because my daughter and my son-in-law worked there for a while. And they recognize it's a stroke. So what do? They call the ambulance. The ambulance is hung up in traffic. So for every minute that ambulance is delayed, the patient loses 1.5 million neurons. That's in a speech area, might not be able to talk. So it's more than just a trivial thing when you have delays, and that's what making Charlotte Street a 2-lane road is going to do. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, you guys are duking it out there, Jax.
Jack Thompson, Preservation Society of Asheville and Buncombe County, and by that notion, maybe we should widen it to 6 or 8 lanes. We could get there quicker. We were told at a meeting by city staff in the Charlotte Street Business Association that one, if not many of the studies, multiple studies that have taken place in traffic for Charlotte Street with the hypothetical of a 3-lane would create an additional 5-second delay in traffic. This is information that you have paid for to be provided to make good decisions. Preservation Society is in full support of the road diet to a 3-lane profile. We're also in full support of dedicated bicycle lanes on either side of Charlotte Street, which is an urban neighborhood street, not a thoroughfare, flanked by historic neighborhoods, including a landmark to the south and historic city-owned property to the north. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I didn't realize this was going to be a public hearing. I had submitted, my name is Grace Curry, and I've submitted some questions to you, and some of them have been addressed, especially the pros and cons of eliminating the Innovation District designation. What I'm wondering about is the crosswalk. I'm really excited that there is this crosswalk coming up. And I'm wondering, probably should talk to Ken, are they going to be signaling like hawks? I don't know the correct terms, but at that crosswalk that's being considered, what the signage is?
We're not using hawks at this crosswalk, but we're using the new LED pedestrian warning signs that we've been using in various places across town. The difference on these is they will be push button activated. So the signs will not be blinking 24/7. Only when a pedestrian is there, they'll push the button, they'll get the lights to start blinking. They still need to make sure the car is going to stop before they step foot on our street. I think a long-term solution there would be an actual traffic signal with the pedestrian signals.
Uh-huh.
And that would be one of the things considered in the...
Okay. Well, I think that was, yeah. I think the other the questions I had were answered, and I just am really excited that, again, we're moving forward on this, and you've allocated some staff resources and money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Will Hornaday. I'm with the Charlotte Street Business Association, and Mr. Putnam left out a few things that he's also worked on. He reduced the speed limit from 35 to 25 along the street. He added a crosswalk at Charlotte Street Computers with a sign above it, and increased the number of speed signs and made them more visible along the street, and all those improvements were very appreciated on the street. So I'm with the Charlotte Street Business Association, and I'd like to voice our group's unified support for the road diet and tactical improvements as outlined in the recommendations from PED. We also support the concurrent development of a zoning overlay for North Charlotte Street as outlined by PED to further protect the unique character of the historic district. This is a big deal when the city and neighborhoods and the businesses along the street get a overwhelming agreement that safety needs to be addressed on Charlotte Street. We all see the potential for the street, and with a little encouragement, Charlotte Street can be a great example of how multimodal improvements can impact a street in a way that works for residents and businesses alike. We're encouraged by the vocal support from neighbors and for the implementation of a 3-lane solution to the street. It's a safety measure for all forms of transportation, and it comes with no increase in drive time. According to a 2013 Charlotte Street Corridor study, in the immediate, there's a 7% decrease in AM peak. You can read this, and there's no change. There's 1% in 20 years. Is that one? Yeah, there's a 1% increase at midday, so watch yourself on your way to Fuddruckers in 20 years. I want to thank the city staff and the city manager and the council for truly listening to our concerns over the years, and it's been a long time coming. And more importantly, for your leadership in getting us to the point where actual improvements can happen. And we look forward to a change on Charlotte Street. And this was a little survey we did that said, we just asked people if they wanted to talk about if they would prefer a 4-lane to 3-lane without specifying that it was from Chestnut on. And 63% of the 224 respondents were for it, with about 13%, 14% not sure, and 23% against. Oh, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Jim Siemens. I live and work in the corridor, and I would ask council to consider, in addition to option 1 and 3, option 2, to take a corridor-specific approach and to plan a zone that's consistent and inclusive, that includes not only a vacant lot at Ingalls, but the Patton Parker House. When the district was initially drawn in 2014, the Patton Parker House was a residence. It is no longer that. I would like to be treated like my neighbors. I've been delighted to be involved in this process with the Charlotte Street Business Association, and I certainly appreciate council's attention to this corridor, which is a lovely place to live and work.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Billy Laughlin, and I shot you all an email, and I'm glad to hear that all options are still on the table, because it looked kind of confusing with the 1 and 3, and they seemed a little contradictory. So it's great to hear that you're really moving forward with a wonderful multimodal project. One thing I would like to see if it was possible to add in, which was in the staff write-up, but I didn't see it in the proclamation, which was from the AIM report. Maybe somehow, whereas with surrounding traditional neighborhood land use, Charlotte Street needs a safer, walkable environment. Pedestrian improvements include wider sidewalks and safe roadway crossings should be prioritized. And I'm adding that, I would like to see that added, just because it's kind of frustrating to think that the cyclist might be kind of the bound my safety point between running and having a car. I know the lane is supposed to provide the extra protection, but in some cases the sidewalk really does need to be wider, especially to meet ADA considerations. So thanks so much. This looks like a great project, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Philip Jackson. My family and I own and operate the Chop Shop Butchery at the corner of Chestnut and Charlotte. We live just outside of the Charlotte Street neighborhood, but utilize it frequently with our children. We as a group and a company fully support number 1 and number 3 options to provide our neighborhood, all of our guests, our residents, as well as all the visitors that go through Grove Park, a safe neighborhood to eat, shop, and visit, maintain the neighborhood commerce. Thanks.
I know, Mike, you've been waiting. Anyone else? Mike, why don't you go for it? And then,
okay.
Yeah.
I'm Mike Sewell. I'm the Executive Director of Asheville on Bikes. Asheville on Bikes is a 501c3 nonprofit. Our mission is to cultivate the culture of urban and community riding through advocacy and celebration. And I'm just here to support what I think you have already heard, is that mobility of people is the priority of Charlotte Street. It's the aspiration of our city. I do want to make a statement suggesting, warning that share rows have a particular place and they do not have a place on Charlotte Street. So if we are interested in moving all people by a variety of modes, then we have to build the robust infrastructure. Share rows do not do that on Charlotte Street. Dedicated bicycle lanes do. Right now, this is from the League of American Cyclists. Asheville is holding strong at bronze status. We have made it to a bicycle-friendly community, but we have a long way to go to get to silver. And if we are serious about becoming a better bicycle-friendly, then we have to make some really mobility choices. So if we look at arterial major collectors, 45%, a city that's silver, and Asheville is standing at 5. When we look at key outcome safety crashes, average city has 180. We have 416. So the key next steps, continue to expand bicycle network, especially along high-stress streets, intersections, through different types, bicycle facilities, suitable for people of all ages and abilities. Share rows do not meet the mark. That's it. Thank you very much.
Good evening, City Council. I'm Jane Matthews. I'm a 31-year resident of just off Charlotte Street on Elmore Park. I apologize, I'm late coming from another meeting, so I've missed what everybody said. But I am very excited after 30 plus years of advocating for improvements on Charlotte Street that Council is looking to move ahead. And I'm definitely in favor of multimodal. I want to speak on two things. I really agree with the last speaker, Mike Schul, about bike lanes. I have a child who does not drive, does not really want to drive, and bikes and walks from our neighborhood to downtown almost daily now. And I really believe that that's a great resource. It gets cars off the road. The other thing I want to talk about is speed. I sent this to city staff a long time ago. And I don't know how this works. So, this was a program I did as a continuing ed on traffic calming. It happened to be Italy. But one of the things they talk about is the speed of traffic, and by narrowing lanes, you can reduce the speed. And what it does, and they say, I drive this road a lot, 25 miles is not being adhered to. We have a lot of visitors who ignore the signs. But by reducing that recovered space, and I apologize, that recovered space can provide for bike lanes, wider sidewalks. I would also add trees to that list. If one looks at Kimberly, Edwin, wider streets, traffic is slowed somewhat by the fact that there are trees and creates sort of an enclosure for traffic. The literature will prove that true. So I encourage that as we move ahead with these improvements. So thank you very much. And I'd be happy to email this to anybody that's interested.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Okay, Julie, I believe you have prepared an amendment to, who made the motion?
I did.
You did, okay.
Yeah, it's my changes are not to the motion, but to the resolution. Yeah. So
well,
how do we need
the
to?
resolution? The motion is to adopt the resolution.
Okay.
So it looks like you've made some edits there that you'll be able to give Maggie, so you'll save her from having to type these all out.
I can. I do. Yes. And I've talked about these
tell
with
us
Ken.
Tell us what they are.
So it's in the, and thanks everybody for the suggestions. So in the sixth whereas, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that would now read, whereas option 1 is a road diet only approach, which consists of issuing an RFQ for engineering services to use programmed capital funds to produce construction drawings to implement a road diet with bike lanes and pedestrian improvements as the preferred and priority treatment, period, or semicolon actually. And then the next whereas clause would read, whereas option 3 is a tactical projects approach for the design and implementation of spot neighborhood safety, pedestrian, and streetscape improvements along the Charlotte Street corridor, semicolon. And then I want to suggest adding a whereas clause that gets to the land use piece, that would say, whereas City Council also requests the planning staff review the zoning and land uses in the Charlotte Street corridor to identify possible changes that would enhance a multimodal pedestrian-oriented experience.
Can we also take out the elimination of the innovation district?
I did.
Oh.
So what I read to you was the text of
Oh,
what it
so
would read.
you took that out by,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, you did the deletion.
I did, yeah. I didn't highlight the deletions, I just didn't read them.
Okay.
So the motion is to adopt the edited resolution. Then, is that,
Second.
can you agree?
I'm good
That's
with
your
that.
motion, and Julie, that's your second?
Yep.
Okay. What's your question?
No, just technically we have to vote on the amendment, then vote on the motion.
Well, I just made them modify their motion. I didn't make them. Because the motion is still to adopt the resolution, but the resolution is now
Has been
modified.
adjusted.
Okay, so you'll have that to provide, Maggie. So any other comments or questions? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you all for making the trip down here to speak on that item. And Ken, thank you very much. That concludes our printed agenda. I have a number of people signed up to speak. The first, and again, same rules apply, 3 minutes while everyone quietly exits. Thank you, yes.
You want a pen too? You want me to write
The
it
first
for you?
person signed up to speak is Sheila Surratt.
I'm going to give my time to Chris Peterson. All of us here.
All right, the second person signed up, Chris, I'll call you in just a minute. Let me, I'm not sure if I can read. Maybe this is one of those people. Starts with an M, first name, last name starts with a G. Moira Gory? What? Maggie, you're out of control today. Sorry.
Hello there. I need to get tolerance, please. It's fine. So I'm here to speak in support of the Code for Asheville's policy change about police transparency, and to sort of express my frustrations with how transparency has taken place by my interactions with local government. In that, I recall during that presentation, you were saying like we're not entirely sure we have the personnel in the police department to carry that out, and it seemed in part to be that Tammy Hooper probably is not super in favor of that transparency going forward. And that's just my opinion from going to things that she's kind of supposed to be at, and her not showing up, right? And then not having coherent transparency, to my mind, to my eyes, in participating, and then having no effect, like no. I want this to go forward. I want there to be effective transparency in policing in Asheville, because without it, we're just backsliding. And you know that, and we know that, and the last year proved that as effectively as anything can, right? So, do it. And I know that it can be done effectively. I know you can do it. So just get it over with. Okay? Cool.
The next person I have signed up to speak is Keisha Hendricks. You're all right. John Miller, waving, okay, waving, all right. Okay, Suzanne Stowe.
Mayor and council members, hi, I'm Suzanne Stowe. While I don't live in Asheville, I do work for the city of Asheville as a laborer one in the Parks and Recreation Department. I've had this job for 4 years and I have love for caring for Asheville's many parks, greenways, and recreational areas and facilities. I can even see myself spending the rest of my life in a career in this department. Of course, I would love to live in Asheville, but I can't. I don't make enough money to do that. But even so, I still love working here. I'm here tonight about an issue that I and several of my coworkers recently brought up to our supervisors. Our employee handbook states that it is the policy of the city of Asheville that all employees be treated fairly and equitably in all respects. Yet we Laborer One employees in the Parks and Recreation Department who make far less than $13 an hour only recently discovered that since November of last year, every other permanent Laborer One who works for the city has been earning at least $13 an hour. While we have the same job title, we have the same job classification, but we do not have the same base pay. Why is this? Do the city leaders think that it's not important to keep our park facilities clean and maintained? Or do the powers that be simply believe that the people who clean and maintain the park facilities aren't as important as every other Laborer One in the city? Whatever the reason is for this disparity in the base pay for laborers, it is glaringly obvious that in the city is not living up to the policy of treating employees fairly and equitably. This unequal treatment must be fixed immediately by raising the base pay of the permanent Laborer One employees of the Parks and Recreation Department to $13 an hour, and by making this raise retroactive to the date that every other Laborer One in the city was given that raise in base pay. While this will in no way get me or most of my co-workers close to the wage that we would need to rent a place in the city where we work, it would go a long way to helping us be able to afford to drive in to spend our money at the many stores, restaurants, and events in Asheville, which is something that most of us are not currently able to do very often. It will also help us know that our work is valued and that this would help me be able to continue to do the work that I love and find meaningful. I recognize that creating a budget for this city is not an easy task, but I do expect the city to respect its own policy of equity and fairness. I do expect the city to treat its employees fairly. By doing so, you have a much better chance of retaining good workers. By retaining good workers, you save the city money. By paying your workers enough to do more than barely survive, you help local businesses and increase the well-being of our entire local economy. I thank you for your time and for allowing me to speak to this matter.
Thank you, Ms. Stowe. And I noticed, Kathy, you were
Ms. Stone?
taking out Stowe.
Ms. Stone, would you be so kind to leave your remarks? I would love to look at them again. Sure.
If you just pass on to Maggie. And Kathy, I think if you could look into Ms. Stowe's comments and maybe bring that to Finance, which is now Finance and HR, to review and understand what's going on. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I think we have someone else here tonight who wanted to talk about that. But first I have Bryn Estelle. Is that right? Hopefully I say that.
I'm just here tonight to share a transmission statement regarding Code for Asheville's petition for police transparency. Revelations about the horrifying police brutality against Johnny Rush, the enabling of that racist violence by officers at multiple levels of the Asheville Police Department, and the fact that Asheville's racial disparities in traffic stops and searches are the worst of the state, all betray an Asheville in which black residents cannot expect basic equity from law enforcement. This must change. Transgender and non-binary people, especially black trans feminine people, have historically been targets of unfair treatment and harassment from police agencies. Asheville, including under the department's current leadership, is no exception. Serious reforms are required, including consequences for city officials at all levels of government who have enabled these injustices, an overhaul of the APD, as well as a real change in resources and decision-making to begin the long overdue work of addressing our city's de facto segregation. Bringing more information and data to light is a key prerequisite to achieving this necessary change, and Transmission supports the call for greater transparency regarding the APD and operations thereof. We encourage members of and allies to our community to sign this petition. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And next I have Claude Gable.
Hi, I'm Claude Gable. Thanks for your time. I am also a Parks and Recreation labor worker. I'm a co-worker of Suzanne. And I just wanted to second her comments and also add a little more to that, just that North Carolina living wage is put at $11.36 an hour. That's an MIT study. And I've been working 2.5 years for Parks and Recreation, and I have other very experienced, similarly experienced co-workers, and we are making far less than the living wage standard in the city. And we know that Asheville is relatively a higher cost of living than most of the rest of the state. So I would again, as my coworker Suzanne said, I would just urge you to rectify this disparity. Apparently this problem has been overlooked, and many of my coworkers have to cope with this. Also significantly, the summer months are coming up, and it's going to get much more busy at the various parks, and we need help out there. We're a little short-staffed, and it's coming fast. And if we want to hire, dedicated and able people, we have to offer them something better than $11, $11.07. Or they're just not going to apply. And from what I hear, that's what's happening. So this is a straightforward problem. I don't think it would be unduly difficult and nor a great strain on the budget even to help a few of us in the Parks and Recreation Department there. So thanks very much. Again, a simple solution. Can you give us $13 an hour? Thanks for your time and attention.
Can you answer, are you working for a contractor or are you direct employee of the city?
Direct employee of the city, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Peterson, it is your next. And I have D. Williams, I have you signed up after that.
I think I have 4 people.
Yes. Maggie, 10 minutes. Thank you.
My partner was here last week. You're in the budget process. For all those people out there on TV, you need to thank the mayor and our past city manager for buying my property, or can I say taking my property on the river for $1.4 million, which they didn't need to do. But see, the problem here is you have a council here. They have got us in debt up to $70 million. Now, I don't want the mayor to sit there and act surprised like you did last year when I came up here in the paper and you headlined and said, "I'm shocked, we're $10 million in the hole." How are you shocked? You've been mayor for 4.5 years. Now you fired a city manager that was corrupt, but you have a lot of corrupt people up here. In fact, some of you sitting in those chairs are corrupt. I've called you personally and told you, you are $70 million in the hole. So what did you do? You went and passed this big fraud bond. Told everybody we're going to get parks, greenways, You're going to be loving Asheville, going to the river. We're going to have a huge river park, and all these tourists that don't pay jobs, these tourist jobs, and that's what you've made this city, a cheap tourist trap. And you know what? You think, you know, you sit out here and you throw some crumbs of the black community. You know, the guy that got beat up, and Mayor, you can't sit there and tell me that you didn't know about it. That you told some whoppers, that was the good one. In fact, your best friend over there, Miss Curran, there's another whopper teller.
Mr. Peterson, please direct your remarks to council.
You're going to throw me out when I tell the truth, don't you? You did it one time before. Miss Curran that you brought here from Raleigh, your best buddy, she knew about it 6 months ago. Your other two buddies, Wizlet and Mayfield over there, yeah, the gang of four over there, y'all all knew it. You can lie if you want to. We out there in the public, we know. But the truth is, you're 70 million in the hole. Now I'm going to tell you what, you've got two solutions. You've got to cut your budget. And I'm talking about, if you want to do it evenly, you're going to have to cut at least 30 million. You can cut 15 that you're going to have to do now. And you're going to have to raise taxes 15 million. Now, you know, y'all made this a cheap tourist town, and you've raised taxes 6 times in fees and charges since you've been there. That's all you do. You know why? You can't read a budget. I know you can't, because I've asked you about budget. In fact, most of you out there can't, because you don't have any business sense. Now, I'm going to tell you what, the rest of the public out here, these sheep can and sit there and vote for you. And you know what? Y'all keep raising taxes. You keep paying fees. We have become a rich little city. If you ain't got money, you're not going to be able to live here. Because these little cheap jobs that we've got, these Belgian beer, and by the way, you got to spend $1 million on that railroad bridge. Took me 3 years to get that. $1 million for Belgian beer to drive their trucks. It's part of the deal, along with about $20 million in taxes that you gave them. But here we are. You're going to act like, I don't know who you're going to blame it on this year, or you're going to act like, you know, I guess that your brain, you didn't know it. Again, you've been there for 5 years. You know, you're so interested in becoming the next governor, I think, that you don't care about the city. You know, you spend millions of dollars on these bike people. What an elitist group. How many kids in Hillcrest can go out there and buy $1,000 suits with bicycles so they can go out there? It's an elitist sport. It's the new golf courses for our millennial socialist Democrat party that tells you what to do, because you're all members. That's right. You know, the truth hurts. I can afford to live here. Guess what? I can afford to sit here and tell you the truth, because you can't fire me. You can't do anything to me. And you got a paper over there. They never do their work either. All they do is push your agenda. So does the chamber. And what do you do with the chamber? You give them awards and you give them money so they can be the tourist town. So bring us more cheap jobs here. Don't bring us good paying jobs. You know what? I grew up here. I was born here. I remember Hillcrest. You know what? They're still in Hillcrest. You haven't done nothing for them. I hope that we have 2 black leaders that got elected. I hope that you're not going to be like everybody else and not do anything. We've got some major problems. This is a rich town now. The train has left the station. And guess what? You ain't got no jobs here. You know, I could go on and on. You know, I hand out newsletters. I go door to door, 1,000 of them. This was number 11. For the last 4 years, we have been reporting our city manager, current city council have been steadily bankrupting our city. With this group leading our city, we are headed for a train wreck on June 1st, 2018. This is an important date to remember because the city budget will be presented and show that we are up to $40 million in debt. Due to the bad council decisions, Rad Tip, Art Museum, Eagle Street, Transit System, Greenways, Bike Pass, Stormwater, New Belgium, lawsuits, salaries, and by the way, salaries. You're paying $90 million out of your budget. It's right there. There's your rich people right here, sitting here. Yeah, our city attorney there, you make $230,000.
Mr. Peterson.
It's not a bad job, is it? Gary made $260,000. And by the way, why are you going to give him his money? Because you told him as long as he keeps his mouth shut and gets out of town, you're going to give him his money. If he put me 60 to 70 million in the hole, he shouldn't be getting any money. You know, the county didn't steal what this bunch has done, and it's a travesty. And you know what, like I said, I can go on and on. I've been spending 4 years of my life studying your budget and your crooked people up here, and it's a shame. But y'all keep giving yourselves awards because you don't deserve them. What you need to do is, some of you need to quit. Some of them need to tell the truth and probably step down. But like I said, I can afford to live here. I'm not proud of that. I think it's sad. I go out here every day and I meet people that come here from Oregon, Washington. They said, yeah, we got the hype. We were told this is a great city. It's beautiful, but guess what? We can't afford to live here. The housing, the groceries, the gas, you know, but you keep giving yourselves awards, and I hope the public out there that's looking at me on TV, I hope you vote every one of these people out.
I have one more person signed up to speak, and that's Steve Williams.
Yeah, you can.
That's okay. Yep, don't worry. If you didn't sign up, you can still speak. I just call in the sign-ups first.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Dee Williams. I'm a local business owner, not only here in Asheville, but also in the upstate where I travel to on a frequent basis. I am happy that there is attention being paid to what is happening with the Asheville Police Department and the Black community. The only thing is that those of us who were primary movers and you would never know it. One of the things that I ask you to do at all times is to try to be cognizant of process. I was asked to come in to help the NAACP here start the Criminal Justice Reform Committee by a member who, by the way, League of Women Voters who we did ban the box bill commission and got it passed, and also living wage for their employees, which is some over 12,000. City and county followed them. That was the process. We brought in code for Asheville, and we brought in EMS with the Southern Coalition of Social Justice. Let me be very frank. I try to be very respectful. The best way to do anything is to try to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. While we appreciate everything that our allies have done in terms of data gathering, there are some of us who are also statisticians and data management people as well. And looking at it, it looks like what has happened is that the council has sought fit to reach over and get our white allies, our white people, and left the NAACP totally out of the process. I've had some conversation. I'm not on that committee. I am on that committee, but I stepped away from my chair. That was one issue that really bothered me, of how the council frequently went to the white members and deferred to them and wouldn't even communicate sometimes when we were to appear on the Public Safety Committee or if other information. So we've had to kind of remind folk that the tail does not wag the dog. And it's just disrespectful, and it's called tokenism. And so if you would refrain from that, and I think Carmen is kind of basically chairing the committee right now. I'm on there, and I'm an information person and also a data person, so I still provide some support. But I really do think you ought to observe that. I know you probably don't mean any harm. People work with people who tend to look like them and think like them. But this is a project of the NAACP here in Asheville-Buncombe County. I want to also just allude to the fact that the black community is not doing well. We're going to present some workshops in the areas of economics. A lot of poor white people aren't either. But we also, of course, police brutality, the social determinants of health. The CDC has its eyes on Asheville. And what we're going to try to do is to get some activists here from out of the area to try to help us out and get the media's attention focused. Thank you.
Thank you. Carmen.
Good evening. I'm Carmen Ramos-Kennedy, President of the Asheville-Buncombe Branch NAACP. And as Patrick said in his petition, the Asheville-Buncombe Branch NAACP is in complete support of that. You know, we're running out of time for trust-building people. You know, the NAACP presented recommendations, no-cost, low-cost recommendations last year. And as Dee alluded to, she was chair of that committee. And with the work of Ian Mance from the Social Coalition for Social Justice, we cannot continue to wait. The trust that many of us worked very hard to build, the Rush incident has blown it out of the water. You guys do not have your fingers on the pulse of the community. We need to move quickly. Let's not be looking at this recommendations 6 months, 10 months, a year down the road. Please, I urge you to act. It's important. There's an immediacy to it. Please act. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think this council would agree with you wholeheartedly if we were able to micromanage all of the 1,200 city employees, we would do that. And the burden falls on Kathy, and I'm glad you're here and you're hearing this, but there is definitely a sense of urgency about these concerns and about proposals for change. So thank you for those comments. Is there anyone else who hasn't had a chance yet to speak that would like to? Yes. If you'll just state your name, because I don't have any more sign-ups. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Luke Fernbach. I just want to echo what some community members have spoke about already in terms of supporting Code for Asheville's proposals. You know, it sounds like you all are receptive to those proposals, and that's awesome. I just don't want us to find ourselves in a situation like we were with Mr. Mance's proposal over a year ago, which was like smaller in scope for these two things. You know, and I know Public Safety Committee voted to bring him back again, and he's going to be coming back and giving the presentation again and asking for those reforms. And I just hope that, you know, we can accept those and move forward and do the same thing with Code for Asheville's proposals. I also wanted to just briefly talk about, you know, this horrible thing that happened in our community about 2 weeks ago. And I spoke about this at Public Safety Committee, but I did want to address it with you all as well. You know, we have this thing of where we said that we're, you know, not officially a sanctuary city, but we're like practically a sanctuary city. You know, we certainly were not a sanctuary city to those folks who got kidnapped about a week and a half ago. And the statement that you guys released, you know, saying all these really nice things about how much we support our immigrant community, and, you know, if you need help, call SEMA and call Pisgah Legal Services, and all that's great, but I'm really wondering, like, what are we going to do as a city? Because it can't just be for, like, Be Loved, who's doing all this amazing work, working around the clock to make sure that those families are getting taken care of. You know, what are we going to do to make sure that the kids who had their families taken away right in front of them are getting trauma-informed care for that, and the families are getting the legal help that they need for those things. So it's like, it's great that we say that we are a sanctuary city, even though we're not officially a sanctuary city, but like, how are we going to actually be that for those families? And then last thing, real quick, I haven't been able to attend any of the budget meetings. But just to, I know this isn't officially that forum, but just to speak super briefly on that, you know, I think we should give that $1 million back to the people.
Thanks. I will tell you on the issue of ICE and the events that have been happening in our community, you know, and I know people hate to hear the limitations of cities in North Carolina, but you know, we don't provide social services, health services. Those are provided by the county, and we don't own or operate or run any jails, so we don't have an issue of like counties do, where they may or may not be holding folks for the federal government. So but what we can do, and to your point, I have asked staff to reach out to ICE to see if they will sit down with us, at least to start a discussion. This is not something that's been frequent in our community, but I do understand that in some communities the leadership has been able to establish a better relationship with ICE. So I'm feeling my way through that. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but at least see if they're receptive to sitting down with us and having an opening discussion around that. So we'll see how that goes, but I do appreciate your comments in that regard. Anybody else? No? Okay, we have a really long close.
So Esther, can
sorry.
I just one thing? I'll be very brief. The issue of Asheville City Council districts is back in the news, as some of you may know. It appears that the state Senate may be moving on a bill. They are asking for input on the website as to
ncledge.net.
ncledge.net. If you go to ncleg.net, go down to the news and information. There's a link that talks about input for Asheville City Council district criteria. I believe it's going on for another couple of weeks. I don't know what the deadline is, but we would encourage folks to put down what their thoughts are on it.
So I'm going to go to the website and I'm going to post the referendum results.
Sure. Might remind the legislature how that vote turned out, for starters. Okay. Anyone else? Sorry. Any other? Okay.
I move that Asheville City Council go into closed session for the following reasons: to prevent disclosure of information that is privileged and confidential pursuant to the laws of North Carolina, or not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the General Statutes. The law that makes information privileged and confidential in North Carolina General Statute 143 through 318, 10A3. The statutory authorization is contained in North Carolina General Statute 143 through 318, 11A1. To consult with an attorney employed by the city about matters with respect to which the attorney-client privilege between the city and its attorney must be preserved, including but not limited to a lawsuit involving the following parties: City of Asheville versus Robert H. Frost, Parkway Court LLC versus City of Asheville. The statutory authorization is contained in North Carolina General Statute 143 through 318, 11A3.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?